Alyssa Barry reminds us that it is possible to pursue a passion for helping others with a career in business. We met 9 years ago, united by our passion for making the world a better place and improving quality of life for all. I had a feeling at that time we were deeply connected, and this conversation confirmed it. Alyssa, principal and co-founder at irlabs, has created a firm which brings together over 20 diverse professionals to help organizations unlock hidden value. She has had a long career in strategy, investor relations, and communications. You would typically not associate these areas with a self-declared activist, but that's indeed where this activist inside found her calling. If you listen carefully, you will hear some lessons for all of us that we can all leverage. Enjoy the conversation. Welcome to the Navigating Disruption podcast. I'm your host, Shaquille Barmal. I'm the CEO of Ocean Blue Strategic and partner with the Summit Group. I'm a coach, consultant, and speaker, and I help leaders, entrepreneurs, and sales professionals make an impact through improved performance. In this podcast, I share insights and interviews with interesting leaders to define practical lessons that you can use to make an impact in the face of uncertainty. We are proud to be brought to you by the Summit Group. We help companies increase revenue and deepen customer relationships by moving from sales excellence to authentic business relevance through engaging learning experiences. Alyssa, how are you today?
I'm excellent. How are you?
Oh, great. I've been looking forward to this conversation. In fact, last week, I was with somebody who we both know, and I was just so excited to tell him that I was doing an interview with you today. And that person's face lit up, and maybe we'll mention the name of that person. We'll see. But that person's face lit up when I mentioned your name, and we kind of passed on warm feelings to each other just because of talking about you in this conversation. So
wow,
really
that is so kind. I've been looking forward to this conversation too, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah, awesome. Alyssa, I'm going to put you on the spot here, and my feelings won't be hurt if you can't answer this question. But do you remember the first time we met?
I want to say I do, and I'm hoping that based on how you framed that, I'm hoping that I remember that moment. But we met 10 years ago, I want to say roughly.
Probably close, yeah. Probably 8.5, maybe 9.
In Vancouver, you came out and you walked into the boardroom at Amica, and I was sitting there with Samir. And that was the first time we met.
Okay.
Is that right?
I told you that my feelings wouldn't be hurt if you didn't remember, but I got to tell you, I'm extremely touched that you do remember, and your memory is exactly the same as mine. I remember you on the other side of a boardroom table. For context for my listeners, I had just started a new job with Khan Foundation Canada. I was coming in to meet Samir, who was your boss at the time, CEO of Amica, because he was a major sponsor. And he had kind of basically brought you into the fold as the person that was running the show for the organization support of the foundation. And that's when I first met you. And I knew that minute that I would really like you. And
you know what, the feeling is mutual. And I remember you coming in with some of your AKFC colleagues, and you were brand new into that role with lots of excitement and energy. And I remember it because that really resonated with me too, because I had just been, I think at that point, I might have been on my first walk. I want to say maybe 1 or 2 prior to us.
Probably
meeting.
1 or 2. Yeah.
But still very new to the organization and all the work. So, that energy that we both were feeling was mutual.
Yeah. We were both very early in our journey. And of course, we went on to continue to work together in that capacity. You can continue to take on more and more responsibilities, not just within Amica, but then you started taking responsibilities for the overall organization of the walk in Vancouver. And so I do want to come back to that volunteer work that you did. But before we do, Alyssa, it's going to be an odd question. I'm sure most of my listeners, my guests struggle with this. But the question is, how do you describe your role in the world? How do you describe yourself to other people? If they were to say, so Alyssa, who are you? What do you do? How would you describe that?
Oh my, a heavy question. And I'm not sure if I'm happy that you didn't give me a heads up on this one or not. But I would describe my role in this world as I'm a bit of an activist by nature. And I would say that flows through to what I do professionally, what I do personally, as a mom, as a
Mhm.
partner, as a friend. I like to think that I'm a contributor.
Mhm.
I don't like to sit back and just watch the world unfold without being a positive contributor in some
Mhm.
way. So I think as I'm sure we'll jump into this a little bit, but professionally, I love helping people,
Mhm.
and I love taking action. I love pushing the envelope, trying new things. So that's where sort of that activist piece would come in professionally, and then personally, and with my family, just being a mom, making sure that my children are always thinking about ways that they can contribute. Just this is like a simple example, but I'm not going to walk by a piece of trash without picking it up. Like
Mhm.
I and there could be many other examples, but just being a bit of a change maker
Mhm.
has always been part of my upbringing, but
Mhm.
also just part of my DNA.
Oh, I love that. That was a great narrative. And I don't know if you've delivered that narrative before, but it really was really great. I mean, it so lands with me the way
Put me
I
on
know
the
you.
spot.
Well, I mean, it really does. I mean, that's the truth is that, the first thing that comes to our mind and our words is usually right because we don't have time to think about it. But everything you said really lands with me as far as my experience of you over the last, I guess, 8 or 9 years. Wow, I can't believe we've known each other
You
that long.
know, I'll give you another example now that I'm thinking about this as you asked the question. So when I was about, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years old,
Yeah.
there was a restaurant that our family would go to every now and then, and I loved it. It was a nice experience, and it was yeah, I really loved this place, and it was nice for us to go as a family. But we found out that the restaurant was going to be shutting down. And I, being the little 8-year-old or 7-year-old activist, I had my grandmother's old typewriter, if you can believe it or not. I
Yeah.
don't know if our family had a computer yet. And I typed up all the reasons why I thought the restaurant should stay open, but I also gave them all my suggestions on how they could keep running their business. So
Oh,
as
wow.
I typed up this little menu that I'm sure was just ridiculous now if I could go back to seeing what I had written. But I had asked my dad to mail it to them, and this was my way of just helping them. And now, as I reflect back on the work that I have done over the years as a shareholder activist, advocating for change, helping companies outline ways that they can improve strategy and governance,
Mm.
and ultimately become a more profitable organization. That was the 7 or 8-year-old version
Amazing.
way back.
Amazing.
So.
Amazing. Oh, so that's perfect kind of lead into what I typically ask my guests because a few years ago I kind of started this journey of really looking at myself, my own leadership, who I am, and trying to make sense of kind of my role in the world and my answer to that question that I just asked you. And it led me down the path of doing a lot of writing on my childhood, adolescence, and drawing stories that would help me kind of come to terms with why I show up the way I do and what do I do. And so when I think of that story of you at 7 or 8 years old writing that letter with that typewriter, it's a great vivid image. Where do you think that came from? Were you just born with it? Did you have examples? As an example or a lesson that somebody taught you come to mind?
I have reflected on this a lot, and I want to say it's a combination of probably just genetics, but also I take after both mom and dad, and they have
Mhm.
a bit of that sort of activist nature
Mhm.
in them as well. One of the things that I've been so fortunate to still maintain today is I've always journaled, even as a child, and even today I journal as an adult. And I think the fact that both mom and dad always encouraged me to write thoughts down and
Mhm.
and keep a tab. And I'm sure when I was very young. I actually still have these journals. I would love to, I should go back and take a look at them. But I'm sure I was just writing down what I ate that day or what kind of popsicle I got, like just, the most basic, but those things, the entries into those journals evolved over the years. And I think I've never been one to just sit down and let things go. And I see that a lot in my writing. So I don't know. I think the trigger has just always been a combination of that upbringing and just wanting to make sure that I'm, capturing moments.
Mm-hmm. So can you tell me a little bit about journaling? I'm always so impressed when I talk to leaders that journal. And I'm just curious, what do you think the actual process of journaling does for you in your leadership as a human being? What does it do for you?
It's a great question. I would say it's a little bit therapeutic because I'm a passionate writer. And I get to write every day, whether it's emails, reports, press releases, scripting, everything like that. But it's personal. And one of the things I love about journaling, and I actually encourage a lot of younger people in their careers to do this as well. Over time, you hear something and you're like, that's a great quote. I'd love to remember it. You remember it for a week and then you never remember it again. Mm-hmm. Or there's a lesson and one of the entries I remember writing about. So I was there for the financial crisis that the 2008. Mm-hmm. And one of my journal entries, and I've actually gone back to this one, was about, we decided as an organization, I was working for a public company, working closely with Samir at Amica. And we decided to put the pause on a lot of our investor relations or outreach efforts and just kind of focus on, the task at hand. Mm-hmm. And I remember we sat down and had a conversation about how in good times and bad, communication is just so critical. Mm-hmm. And we went back and ensured that we were always dialoguing with every key stakeholder within the organization, even during those really tough times. And for us, that allowed us to maintain relationships that I'm sure otherwise would have been gone or having to be rebuilt, years later. And I use it as an example because I know that was something that I've gone back to a couple of times and read that entry in, sometimes thinking, what, let's just, put this on pause for a little while or come back to it. And just that was one thing that was really profound for me. But I think it's just important I document great quotes that I hear, if you were to, say something really cool here, like I'll go back and write about it. And it just gives me a bit of a database also of content.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's a great
and I'm hoping my kids can read them one day, right?
Oh, that's fantastic. So much value that comes from taking that time to reflect. One of the things I really believe in my coaching practice is each of us has genius within us, not necessarily because there's anything special. Of course, everybody is special, but the way our brains are structured is to absorb, capture information, find patterns in our experiences. And the more we take the time to reflect on those senses and that information that comes our way and make note of it, it allows us to continually draw from our own genius and from the genius of others. So clearly that's probably been a big contributor to your career and how you ended up doing what you're doing now.
I love that. I would never call myself a genius, but I like how you framed that.
Well, let's actually, this kind of led me to a curiosity I have about, this activism. You use the term shareholder activism. I'm sure not all of my listeners will have been exposed to that term. Tell us a little bit more about shareholder activism, your role in that professionally.
Okay, this is something I get really excited talking about. Mm-hmm. So shareholder activism, to put it quite simply, we've got public companies that anyone can invest in. You and I can go invest in Apple or Tesla or Netflix or whatever suits us. And there could be a company that is trading at, let's just say for the sake of this conversation, it's trading at $5 a share, but it's worth far, far more. It might be worth 10, it might be worth 20, maybe it's worth far more than that. And because we're in a world where markets are inefficient, we have wars, we have terrorism, we have global warming,
COVID.
whatever. COVID, like exactly, pandemics, like the things that happened that we have absolutely, well, we have some control. I won't say we don't have any control, but the markets, we don't, as companies, don't have control of all of these different events that happen. And then it could be something internal. So a company might have the wrong people in the wrong seat, like in the wrong seats, the wrong leadership. Maybe the strategy is just not clearly articulated to investors and they don't quite understand. So what shareholder activism is taking that company from $5 to what its actual value is and helping to unlock that value. We hear about unlocking value, value creation, all of these activism buzzwords. And so what an activist does is essentially, to be successful, you need to have ownership in that company. So if I went to knock on Apple's door today and said, here, I think you should be trading at whatever that price may be, but I don't own any shares, they're not going to listen to me. I don't wield any influence. So it's essentially building an ownership position. You've got to be a good investor first and foremost, and investing in a company, and then saying, look, I'm an owner. I have some ideas, and here's how I can help. And so that's the world of shareholder activism.
Amazing. It's such a, like you said, the connection between that seven or 8-year-old little girl and what you're talking about and activism. So you buy shares in a company and you're not satisfied with just sitting back and being dissatisfied with the share value and the growth in the share value. You don't complain about it. You don't just sell your shares. You actually play a role in trying to help the organization become aware that there's more value there and actually find a way to help them get there.
That's exactly it. We hear a lot in the news about being an active versus passive investor. And we hear lots more about all of these different funds and investors are becoming more active. And it just means actually engaging with a company. It doesn't mean we have all the answers either as an activist, but and sometimes management is the management team of that company is receptive to the ideas. And then other times it's they're not. And, they're running the company the way they feel is best. Sometimes there are governance issues. Sometimes there's founder issues that, you started a company and someone knocks on your door and says, you're doing these things wrong. I think you should do these things. There's a little bit of an ego that could come at play. So it's a really interesting world. And oh boy, do I have stories on that.
I'm sure you do. And it actually sounds like, there's this quote that somebody I work with says all the time as we're working with organizations to drive business results. And the term he uses is the soft stuff is the hard stuff. And what that always means is that in order to drive the business result, the hard stuff, grow our product revenue, enter new markets, whatever that is, that's considered the hardcore measurables. Usually the path to get there is through soft stuff, engagement, creative thinking, innovation. And that stuff is soft stuff. It's people stuff, but it's also really hard. So when you describe what you're trying to do with kind of unlocking value, it sounds like there's probably a lot of soft stuff that's hard stuff in there.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And look, I love it. I wrote it down. That's going in my journal. Very well said. Yeah, no, it's such a fascinating world. And that's really, I've evolved, my career has evolved in so many different ways. That's something that while I'm no longer sort of wearing that shareholder activist hat, I'm doing in my day-to-day job today in some way.
So can you give me just at least one example? Obviously, name's protected, everything's protected. Give me an example of one of the paths. I'm sure there's many that you would take to take a company and kind of find a way to unlock that value. In your current role, how would you do that?
So in my current role, I like to say I'm now the activist on the inside. So I'm working for the companies now. Okay. So I'm not the shareholder, I am the inside. So one of the things that I'm doing for a few of my clients right now is actually helping them rebuild their boards. So two of my clients have identified that they have some skill sets on their board that are missing or it'd be really nice to add, or they don't have a diverse enough board, and diversity as it relates to gender and experiences and everything else. So using my Rolodex, I'm helping them identify and find those right individuals. I am not a recruiter, to be very clear, but I've got a lot of really great people in my network who are highly qualified and can serve on these boards to help contribute to governance and strategy and hopefully propel those companies to the next level. I'm a really big governance geek. I love corporate governance. I love keeping up to date on the latest and greatest of all sorts of different policies. Super passionate about ESG, and that's a conversation for, I'm sure, another day, a very heavy topic. I feel like I've been focusing on ESG prior to it even being an acronym. But
let's define it for my listeners that don't know what ESG is.
Oh, excellent. Okay, well, environmental, social, and governance.
Okay.
And so essentially making sure that we're doing things that kind of fall into all of those different buckets. Okay. But yeah, like that's how I'm helping my clients. At the end of the day, they hire me to help them. Most of them are public companies. So what do they want? They want their share price to go up, and they want liquidity. And I can go tell a story all day long. I can write a press release. I can call a reporter. I can book meetings. I can engage with investors. But if you've got broken governance or a strategy or a story that's not articulated properly or just doesn't resonate, I can't do my job right. So that's why I feel like I can get in there as the activist and figure out where are the gaps, and looking at it from that, prior shareholder activism angle, and then help bridge that value gap.
So here's how I'm hearing this and interpreting it is that if a company is at least, let's call it self-aware. Self-aware is just a human thing, but let's say the company or the leadership is self-aware enough to say that the market is not recognizing the value that we have.
That's right.
We need to do better. We need to get the value of our share price up. They would ask you to come in to help them get the market to recognize the value.
That's right.
So while part of that is telling a story to the market, so the market sees the value, you also then are able to use your trust and your credibility to get the organization that hired you to listen to your thoughts and advice about what are some of the things that are broken internally. So it's improve the story on the outside, but fix the things on the inside to make a better story on the outside. Am I hearing it right?
You're a pro. I'm sending you to all my client pitches from now on.
Well, you just explained it to me. This is my way of kind of digesting it and understanding it. And that's very cool. That's very cool work, Alyssa. And
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It really, truly is.
So you're doing this now for profession. You've obviously played this role inside organizations. I know you've had roles as heading up investor relations for organizations, and also for an organization that was a bit of an activist investor. And now you're doing this on your own with a company called irlabs. Tell us about that. I know you got a busy day and you just got a few minutes left, but I have to hear about how you conceived of irlabs and what it is, what it does, and how is it an expression of you?
Wow. I've been so fortunate to have just such an evolution in my career and do so many really great things. And I just want to say credit to every leader, everyone in every organization, whoever gave me something to learn from. That, again, much of it is probably documented in all these journals, but I feel I love being busy and I love helping people. And a couple of years ago, I was just reflecting on what's next. And someone said to me, Alyssa, someone I respect very much, I asked for their advice. He said, Alyssa, you need to help people. And I took that away going, I'm not a doctor. Like, I don't know how to help. Like, what do I do to help people? But he said, that is your destiny, is to help people. And as I reflected on it a bit, it took me a while, and it was always in the back of my mind. And I love my job. So, I'm not looking for a change, but I'm just looking at always growing and doing better. And, but then I thought, I want to help people in business. Like, that's where I can help. And again, back to the 7 or 8 year old me and the shareholder activist and everything else, I thought, what, I can do really good work. I love being busy and doing 1,000 things at once, which is both my strength and weakness. And so I had this idea of just doing good investor relations, or almost taking this, like I said, activism from the inside out. No one else is doing it. And they're really, while there are communications firms out there, there's some investor relations firms that offer some of what we do, but not all. I met up with my business partner, Caroline Sawamoto, who we met about 16 years ago now through the Canadian Investor Relations Institute, which is an organization for the profession of investor relations professionals. And we always kept in touch. We were never really great friends, like personally or anything, but we kept in touch professionally. We saw each other at events and would say hello and have a coffee. And I feel like sometimes you meet people in your life and sometimes you'll know why you're meant to meet them and sometimes you'll never know. And so my reason or my destiny with Caroline was I called her up. It was actually March of last year. And I said, Caroline, I've got an idea. Let's do good investor relations. No one else is doing it the way that I see it in my mind. And God bless her. At the end of that call, she's like, I'm in. Like I really was not expecting that. And I just knew like I'd found, the perfect partner to pursue this with. I wanted to make sure that I was working with somebody. I wanted to collaborate. Today, we've got 20 people on our team across Canada. We've got actually a couple individuals in the US, one placed in Mexico as well. And we're working with companies from plant-based foods, fintechs. We've got a gravel recycling company. We've got mining. We've got it's so cool. We've got so many really interesting companies that have come to us to say, help us tell our story, help us create visibility and share it with the market. And we've assembled what I would call a team of misfits in some ways, where we've all have really unique backgrounds, but we brought together the best of the best. And I know a lot of leaders will say they've got the best team. Truly, I feel so fortunate. Our people are so passionate, so creative. They love what we're doing. And just think about all of the variety that we get in a day. So, at one moment we could be working with a cannabis company, and then the next we're working with, the latest and greatest in plant-based foods. It's just been so exciting, and I count my blessings every day, and I have just such a heart full of gratitude for being able to pull it off. And I'm scared every day, which as someone who I respect very much, who's a lawyer who's based in Calgary, I told him as I was venturing into entrepreneurship, I said, I'm scared out of my mind. And he said, don't ever lose that, because the moment you're no longer scared, you'll be in trouble. Every, successful entrepreneur is always scared and hungry every day. Yeah. So that's something that certainly has stuck with me. But that's the quick on IR Labs.
Yeah, well, that's great. And I could so hear the passion in your voice as you're describing that. And I bet you feel like all of this stuff is coming relatively easy, but I know it's been a lot of work to get there. But there's something magical that happens when you align your own sense of purpose and your own talents and your own strengths, and you have great relationships and you do good work. Just something happens where the momentum just carries you forward, I expect.
You're so right. It comes easy when you love what you do. I feel like I've actually my whole career been really fortunate that I've never felt like I've had to wake up, for a job, Monday morning. It's always been like, I can't wait until the next morning. I can't wait for Monday. You know me well enough that I'm kind of a super geek like that. Yeah. But one of the things you also said was relationships. And one of the things that I have done my entire career is just maintaining relationships and always asking someone else, what can I do for you, with zero expectation in return. Mm-hmm. And I keep my Rolodex like a Bible. I still have all a drawer full of business cards, and I manage my LinkedIn really carefully, because I think it's important to always, be building up your database and your relationships. And IR Labs would not be successful, as successful as it is today, if it weren't for all of that hustle to maintain those relationships. I have so many people who've just been champions. They've been cheerleaders. I'm fortunate that like we don't even do a lot of business development. People are just referring, like it's been amazing, honestly.
Yeah, I so buy that.
Overwhelming, actually.
I so buy that. I so believe it that if you go into the world and business with an open heart and you're as excited about helping somebody, giving advice to somebody that actually where you can have no expectation that there's business for you or any kind of revenue, just do it because it makes you feel good, that those are all the seeds that get planted. So when you least expect it, connections are made. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday who is now coaching somebody who worked for me like 15 years ago when they were an undergraduate in university. And she reached out to me because she just told her a story about something I did to help her. And by coincidence, she happened to know me. Like this individual happened to know me, divided by 15 years or so. But like when you plant those seeds, it lasts a long time. And so that's
look at us. Look at us sitting here, right?
Exactly.
Like, over a decade later. So.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm so with you on that. Investing in relationships, giving without expectation of return is what makes life worth living, as well. And it does end up paying off, financially as well, even though that's not the reason we do it. Look, I want to be respectful. I know you are actually hosting a session yourself in a little while. There's one other thing I wanted to just chat about with you is one of the reasons that prompted me to reach out and have this conversation with you was a post that you did on LinkedIn, and you were celebrating the term and your identity as a multi-hyphenate. And that term, even though I had never heard it before, the minute I read those words, I kind of really identified with it. So let's just share that, because I just really want to share that with other people. What do you mean by that term multi-hyphenate? What does it mean to you?
Yeah. Well, thank you. I really, I love talking about this. So, and I think it's very understated. And I think a lot of people are multi-hyphenates even without realizing it. So having a lot of, I think we know it more layman's terms as like a lot of side hustles, like doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer that I am blessed to have success today at irlabs, but I don't know what the future holds. Right. So maintaining, maybe getting involved in something extra on the side or learning a new skill or whatever it may be, I think it's just mission critical. And I think it only makes us more well-rounded human beings. I actually pretty early on in my career, I was penalized for being a multi-hyphenate. So quick story on that one was I take on a lot, but I always know my point of capacity. It's something that I've always recognized throughout my career. And so in this one situation, I was volunteering here and there and doing this committee and that committee and putting my hand up. Like I've always, that saying, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. Like that's always been me. But because I put my hand up in all of these situations, I was building my skill sets. When I was in very early in my career, I remember someone needed to sit in the boardroom and take board meeting minutes for a board meeting for a public company. Well, gosh, who's going to put up their hand for a 4-hour board session that starts at 5 o'clock on a Friday night that's going to run? I did, because I'm sitting in a room with very successful business professionals. Yes, I'm taking their board meeting minutes at 21 years old or whatever age I was, but I'm learning and I'm a sponge and I'm taking, I'm learning their demeanor. I'm learning I've never known how do board meetings work. Well, at 21, 22 years old, I felt confident I could be in a boardroom. I knew how to pass resolutions and all these different things. And that's just one example. But I was penalized because I went and asked for more help, because I knew that I could do so much more, but I needed the support for some of the things that are not where my time should be spent. They weren't the value add to the organization. And I was told that, drop this, drop that, drop that, drop that. Those were the things that kept me going and kept me excited and kept me engaged as an employee. And dropping any one of those, I couldn't in my mind imagine doing so, because every
Mm.
single one of those, I felt that I was adding value and it was adding value
Mm.
to my life. But what I wanted was that extra, person or resource or part-time help or whatever, so that I could do so much more. And that's
Got
the
it.
activist in me, where you give me the resources and I will get it done. So
Awesome.
that's my multi-hyphenate story. But even as a kid, I always the one in high school to have, I didn't have one side job, I had two or three, not because I needed to, like, I didn't need the money.
Yeah.
I didn't need to be spending my, time doing it, but I thought it was so fun. I worked at a car dealership, and then I worked at a catering company. I catered weddings. How cool was that? At 15 years old, I'm going to parties where I'm catering, and then I was, the babysitter for the neighborhood, where I was racking in thousands of dollars babysitting at, a young age. But I loved just the variety and
Oh, so good. So
doing
I
many things.
usually end this conversation with a bit of advice that you might give to leaders, but I'm actually going to take a different spin here, and I'm going to sum up what I just heard from you and package it as advice to young people that might listen to this, young professionals, is that take every experience that comes your way, seek new knowledge, be curious, don't try to typecast yourself in one particular area, and see that variety and exposure to different types of work as a real opportunity to grow that'll only be like exponential in your growth going forward into your career if you start young.
I love it.
That's
That's
your
amazing.
advice that I've packaged in
Thank you.
to people that are
Thank you.
listening. Alyssa, thank you so much for this time. I could
Oh,
talk to you
thank
for
you.
hours, and we will again. Wish you much success in what you're doing. Where can people find you to learn more about you? If they're just had a nice little taste in this conversation, they want to learn more, where do they go?
Thank you so much, Shaquille. I really, really, really appreciate the opportunity. And you're so kind, and you're always a treat to speak with. I am on LinkedIn under
Okay.
Alyssa Barry, and our website is irlabs.ca. And I've got my contact details and LinkedIn connect button on the website. Anything I can do to help support any of your listeners, I am ready and keen to do so.
And she means that, everybody. So there we go. Alyssa, have a great day. We'll talk to you again.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Bye-bye. Wasn't that a great conversation? Alyssa was able to draw almost a straight line from her childhood experience as an activist to what she does for a living now and how she makes sense of her place in the world. Having this level of insight wasn't a coincidence or just luck. It came from a lifetime of deeply reflecting on her everyday experiences and all that she was learning. She has been journaling all of her life, capturing her thoughts, experiences, lessons learned, building her self-awareness, capturing insights from others. She credits this practice for her continuous growth and evolution as a human being and as a professional. As a shareholder activist, she and her team works with companies to ensure the value of their company is unlocked so that investors like you and me and our parents are able to build and protect their wealth. Did you even know that was a profession? I didn't. She saw an opportunity. No one else was doing it, and it was a job that needed doing. So, not being one to sit back, she made it happen. To do this, she drew on all her life experiences. She connected the dots between who she was, what she cared about, what she believed, her skills, her desire to help others, and her business acumen to create a very special firm. She also shared in this conversation how important building and nurturing relationships have been to her career and life. It is something we all know. We hear it all the time. Relationships matter. Relationships are important. But what we hear from Alyssa is how she actually puts that to the test and how she connects with people and gives to them and keeps connected with them in a way that enables her to continue to grow and succeed. One final thought that really sticks with me from this conversation is the value of being scared. As an entrepreneur, if you are not scared, you should be worried. Being scared keeps you learning, keeps you growing, and thus is the root of success. I hope you enjoyed that conversation and have a great day. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, or share it. I want to say thank you to one of my favorite bands, Late Night Conversations, for sharing their song Chaos with me and letting me use it in this episode. You can learn more about them on Instagram at LNC Connected. And here's more of their song Chaos to take you out.
Far behind my eyes, mediation, suffocation, it'll break me. Information in disguise. But when your eyes finally found mine, you were there, but I'm defined by the chaos in my mind. I believe what I perceive is a weave tearing at the seams, and I wonder what's behind. And my ears are bleeding, and the reason isn't the logic of the season, taking the pleasing from my soul and leaving me to die. And I feel the lacing, LNC like racing, unstationary animation, taking me from the purpose of my life.